Once upon a time, in the season of spring, the sun was shining brightly in the sky, spreading its warm rays to the earth. In the fields, the wheat was growing with the warmth of the sun, and the fruits on the trees were ripening. All the birds in nature were sitting on their eggs, waiting for their chicks to hatch. Sheep were giving birth to lambs, and cows were having calves. Our hero, Mother Duck, was also sitting on her eggs among the reeds by the lake. This is how the story of the ugly duckling began. For days, the mother duck kept her eggs warm by spreading her wings wide and sitting on them. But she was getting bored while waiting for her little ducklings to hatch. Sometimes she watched her surroundings, sometimes she sang songs to herself, and sometimes she read storybooks. She wanted her eggs to hatch soon so she could meet her babies. Then all of a sudden she heard a cracking sound. Mother Duck leaned over to look at her eggs. All the eggs were moving. The ducklings were trying to break their shells with their tiny beaks. Mother Duck stood up excitedly and began watching them. One by one, the eggs slowly cracked, and the ducklings poked their heads out of the shells. All the eggs hatched, except for one, which remained silent. While the other ducklings ran and played around her, Mother Duck sat back on the last egg to keep it warm. From her spot, she watched her other ducklings and told them, "Don't go too far, you can eat the grass." Fortunately, it didn't take long for the last egg to start making sounds, and finally, the last duckling broke out of its shell. When the mother duck saw her last duckling, she was very surprised. This duckling looked very different from the others. Its color, size, and face were all unusual compared to the other ducklings. It even looked a little ugly, but the mother duck couldn't bring herself to call her baby ugly. "It's just a bit different from the others," she thought, and she was right. The little duckling was only different from the others. But unfortunately, people often call things ugly just because they look different, and that's such a wrong idea. The siblings of our little duckling made the same mistake. When they noticed how different their youngest sibling was, they started calling it the ugly duckling. They didn't even want to include it in their group. "Your color isn't bright yellow like ours, it's a dull gray. Your beak isn't orange, it's almost black. You look so strange," they told it. Mother Duck's friends were also surprised. The oldest among them said, "A turkey egg must have gotten mixed with yours, and this one won't even be able to swim in the lake." But the mother duck defended her baby, saying, "It's not an ugly duckling, it's my baby and it's just different," as she gently stroked it. She took all her ducklings to the lake to swim. The ducklings all flapped their wings joyfully and jumped into the water. The ugly duckling joined them and swam beautifully. Mother Duck smiled happily and said, "Look at my baby, swimming so well. It's definitely not a turkey chick." Everything seemed fine, but whoever saw the duckling reacted by calling it the ugly duckling and never included it in their group. This situation made the little duckling very sad. Mother Duck patted her baby and said, "Don't mind them, I love you so much," trying to comfort it. But the little duckling was still very unhappy. One day, it could no longer bear it and decided to leave. Early in the morning, it packed up and set off. It walked for days, feeling very sad about being so different and ugly. It was afraid of everyone and didn't want to go near anyone. After walking day and night, it arrived at a lake. At this lake, there were many different kinds of birds: baby storks, pelicans, seagulls, baby geese. There were even terns and skimmers, birds with slender beaks, colorful feathers, plump ones, and skinny ones. At this lake, no one judged it for being different. Our so-called ugly duckling decided to settle there and found a corner by the lake to live. Everyone by the lake was very friendly, but the little duckling still thought it was ugly and didn't talk to anyone. It spent its time alone. Winter came and went. The ice melted, and everything turned green again. Finally, spring arrived. During this time, the duckling had grown quite a bit. One day while swimming in the lake, it saw a flock of birds it had never seen before flying toward the lake. They all landed on the water and began swimming. The ugly duckling thought to itself, "Oh my goodness, they are so beautiful." With their snow-white wings, slender necks with shiny feathers, and almond-shaped black eyes, they were stunning. The ugly duckling had never seen such birds before and couldn't take its eyes off them. One of the newcomers noticed it and called out, "Swan friend, why are you over there and all alone? Come and join us." At first, the little duckling didn't realize the beautiful swan was talking to it. It looked around but saw no one else. When it realized they were calling out to it, it felt very embarrassed and bowed its head, almost dipping it into the water. Then suddenly, It saw its reflection in the water and was astonished. It kept looking at its image in amazement. It looked just like those beautiful swans it admired so much. How could this be, it thought, utterly confused. It spread its wings and saw the shadow of its beautiful white wings in the water. It looked at its neck. It was long and slender, just like the swans. The oldest and wisest bird by the lake, a tern, came up to the ugly duckling. "Look," it said, "your siblings have arrived. I hope you won't be lonely anymore." The ugly duckling turned to the tern and asked in surprise, "My siblings?" The tern replied, "Yes, little one. Weren't you waiting for them? I've been watching you from afar since you came. You've grown and become a beautiful swan. I was sad to see you alone, but the swans come to this lake every spring. And now, your time has come. Go and join your kind." At first, the ugly duckling couldn't believe what it heard. So, it was a swan, too. It began swimming joyfully and happily toward the swans. They all welcomed it and flapped their wings. It also opened and closed its beautiful wings with joy and greeted them. It thought about its siblings and the other animals who had treated it badly. We should never judge someone as ugly just because they look different. My siblings and the others made such a mistake and hurt me deeply, it thought. Then it decided to forgive them and started swimming happily with its new swan friends.